Um,
Oh, yeah, okay.
I think I can just do it now, right? And we can, when they join in, it'll say that recording's in progress. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And is it just better if it's the three of us, or do you want just the slides already pulled up now, I think?
Maybe the slide pulled up, like the first welcome slide.
Yeah. Okay. Ah, a little, a little crazy with the all the bars up above. Okay, wait. Okay, so I'll be back in a minute or two,
Yeah,
and
I'm
then
gonna go grab some water.
we can start letting people in a few minutes early, and then I'll give maybe 1 minute, like 10:01 start.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
okay. Okay.
All right,
Okay,
see you guys in a
in a
second.
bit.
Bye. Hi, thank you all for joining. We'll just get started in a few more minutes as a few other people join in. Like a doorbell. Thank you all. If you're just joining, we're going to get started in just another minute. A few more folks joining in. For those of you who are on the call, you can see our screen and can hear me as well. If you can't, you're welcome to use the chat at any time to kind of communicate with us. All right, I'm gonna get started. A few more folks are still joining. Thank you all so much for joining us for the California Nutrition Incentive Program webinar. This is the first time we've had one of these, so we're really excited to see you all joining and to share more about the program and the RFP that's coming up for this year. So CNIP operates through the Office of Farm to Fork in the California Department of Food and Agriculture, and our website is there. So today's webinar is really going to give you a brief overview and introduction of the program. We'll watch a little video of what's been going on the last few years, and then really get into the application overview and hopefully have about 15 to 20 minutes of time for questions as well. At any time, you're welcome to write the questions in the chat and we may address them right then or wait till that kind of Q&A session at the end. So CNIP, the basis of this program is to provide monetary incentives for the purchase of California grown fruits and vegetables at certified farmers markets and small businesses. And our office offers grant funding to organizations to provide these incentives to shoppers to support their program operations and to facilitate their outreach to other groups. Our office leverages both state general funds and then matches those with federal grant funds. So we kind of both are codependent on each other and really, need the support of the organizations throughout the state. So if you intend to apply for this, this is really the home base and our website where you'll find all the information. You'll find the RFP, the proposal template, the budget template, our email if you have questions, and also the FAQ sheet. After we have this webinar, it is being recorded and we'll also post the webinar and any questions that arise out of it on this website. If you scroll down, you can find out more information about the details of the program and the history of it as well. A brief intro of our team. We have Sarah and Meyer on the call today. Sarah's really been through the inception of this program. Meyer has been a program coordinator for the last couple years and working with a lot of the partners. Winnie's in charge of the budget and compliance with grants. And I just joined the team about 2 months ago to help with the grants management and also communication and storytelling of a lot of the amazing projects that go on in this program, and to help host things like this webinar and get more people applying for these grants. So we're just going to watch this little YouTube video that was made last year by our team to show you a little bit about the program.
The California Nutrition Incentive Program, or CNIP, funds nutrition incentives for shoppers using benefits at participating farmers markets and small retailers. For every dollar of benefits shoppers spend, they receive a matching dollar to spend on California-grown fresh fruits and vegetables up to a certain limit.
The big deal is that I spend 15, I get 30.
This empowers shoppers to stretch their food dollars and purchase healthy fruits and vegetables for their families.
Oh, we have been actually eating a lot more fresh vegetables. Yeah, 4 months we've been doing it, and we've not had that fresh vegetables in the house since until then. So, I feel like it actually gets people out here that wouldn't have normally been out. So I think that there's some value in
Oh, sorry.
that, at least, too, aside from just our impact on individual families.
The quantity out here is like fantastic. You know, all the different fruits and the vegetables, they're, you can't get any better unless I grow it myself. And it's really, really needed. There's so many seniors, we can't afford half of this stuff that, that's in the supermarket nowadays. So, this is a blessing for us.
CNIP provides the matching funds through partners like the Ecology Center, a nonprofit committed to sustainable approaches in various aspects of life, including food. The Ecology Center's program to distribute those funds is called Market Match, and both clients and vendors at certified farmers markets are appreciative.
I mean, people tend to spend more money or market match, and they buy more from us, so it helps us a lot.
Yeah, right there. Yes, we really like the market match. I think the customer likes it probably more than I do because they're getting their bonus, and so that helps us because they have more money to spend.
All right, so that just is a nice little clip of kind of how the program works. And so, it's really exciting on both ends of that for the farmers themselves and the marketers, and then also the customers. So these are some of the 2022 grantees that we've been working with, the Ecology Center in Berkeley, Mandela Partners in Oakland, Dig Deep in Alameda, Chico Natural Foods, Aspire in Monterey, Community Partners in LA, and the Food Trust in San Jose. So they've all been doing work, and I encourage everyone to also reach out to them to see how they've been running this program, as it is sometimes site specific versus rural versus urban areas, and the incentive programs sometimes will operate differently depending on where that location is. So for this next round of funding, we're looking for proposals from eligible entities to distribute these incentives to CalFresh shoppers using their benefits to purchase California grown fruits and vegetables. And these projects they'll be prioritized for those that reach communities that have low access to farmers markets and fruits and vegetables, and also our low income populations. Areas that have a high percent of eligibility for CalFresh will also be prioritized, as well as areas that have high rates of diet-related diseases such as obesity, diabetes. And this is a map put out by the Ecology Center that shows all the farmers markets in California and whether they accept EBT or they do the market match program. This shows you where they're located and also where there's room for more expansion within this program as well. The CNIP program operates through California, but is contingent on this larger funding through the federal Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program. So this is a much larger federal program that runs throughout many states. California is a big part of this program, and the Nutrition Incentive Hub, which is located in Berkeley, does a lot of the analysis to see how these programs actually work. So when we get these CNIP grants, we're going to be compiling them together to put them in for a federal grant. So while you're preparing these, we encourage you to look over the actual, the GusNIP application as well. So I'll briefly go through kind of what this RFP is in terms of funding and duration, incentives, timeline, and then I'm going to hand it over to Meyer, and she'll go over the actual RFP kind of line by line item for those who are, ready to fill it out and see where they're going to need more information potentially. So overall, the state anticipates about $41 million in funding will be available for these awards. And this funding is contingent on matching our state funds with receiving these federal funds. So applicants for this round, because we have different timelines, we're offering kind of two durations for these. One would be a state-only funds from January of 2025 to December. And this could be if you had already had a CNIP grant and needed to fill that gap. And then the federal and states would be available to start in January of 2026. So you can apply for any portion of these, and we'll kind of reiterate this over a couple times in this presentation if this isn't clear at this stage. Eligibility is limited to organizations who can accept SNAP benefits, and that goes for all of these. So that's certified farmers markets, farm stands, small businesses, and nonprofits that are applying on behalf of certified farmers markets or small businesses. And a small business is right now in California defined as independently owned, located in California, has fewer than 100 employees, and average gross receipts of less than $15 million over the last 3 years. They just bumped it up from 10 to 15, I think about 5 or 6 years ago. Definitely have to be in good standings with the state on any previous grants and the state controller's office. So in terms of budgets and certifications and kind of following all the rules, and then getting into the actual incentive program. So these incentives, again, are earned by CalFresh shoppers to get California grown fruits and vegetables. And applicants may limit the items of which the CalFresh shoppers can earn these benefits if they just want them to be for the grown fruits and vegetables. And so what we've seen in the past is kind of 3 models of how this works with CalFresh shoppers, is that they purchase any type of fruit or vegetable and they receive the incentives for just the Californian grown. they purchase any type of CalFresh eligible food with their EBT card and get those incentives for the veggies and the fruits, or they purchase fruits and vegetables at, let's say, a California farmers market, and then they receive those incentives for a CalFresh eligible food. So there are different ways to do this, and we've seen all of these work. In just kind of rules again on how these incentives work for grantees, it must constitute a minimum of 50% of the total requested budget. If and we often see this less, but if there is a reason that you would need more, maybe it's a new location or a new project, then you could provide justification for that. You can have models for incentives where the customer receives that redemption immediately, basically knocking down the price in half, like we saw in the video where he says, I spend 15, but I get $30 worth. Or you can earn an incentive like a token or a card where they can then purchase it later, as you would want in some of those models where they're maybe using it in a different mechanism. They should be made available to CalFresh shoppers when using their benefits at a minimum of a 1-to-1 and a maximum of a 1-to-4. And applicants can cap the dollar amount on incentives that are received by either that specific shopper by day or their overall budget, so that they don't run out of these funds over the grant period. We'll get into this a little more, but when you're tracking these, and you do have to track how many of these incentives are given out, you cannot use the SNAP EBT number to track the individuals or households. This is just a federal rule that a lot of our current partners are working around, and we have suggestions for those if that's something that you're concerned of. Refunds for the SNAP must also adhere to these policies. Again, kind of nuances that we can get into if you have questions on. Here's kind of a broad view of the timeline. This RFA was announced about a month ago. We're here at the webinar to provide you more information, and you'll now have about a month out before the proposals are due on October 11th at 6 p.m. And then we'll provide preliminary selection notification of those grants in November. And for people applying only for the state funds, those would be made available at the start of January. And then next fall, around this time, we should hear if we're awarded the federal GusNIP grant, and those funds would then be available at the start of January 2026. So often kind of working backwards to see where these funds are available, and take some time with your organization and your budgets to see how these timelines are going to line up. Cost sharing is not required, but it is encouraged, and this can be in the form of cash or in-kind support. Again, all of this information is in the RFP. If it's not clear here or answered in your questions, we can certainly follow up. All grantees must agree to participate in CDFA and USDA's reports. And so, yeah, if you're selected for the CNIP, you're going to be a part of our team that's applying for this federal grant. And so that participation will be critical and vital to us securing that funding. This will include things like collecting data, tracking data. You may also be asked to do interviews. We may come down to visit you. And then you'll also need to have a way to track these data in terms of dollar value of incentives issued and redeemed, dollar value of SNAP purchases, number of SNAP purchases. And these data are usually collected at a monthly, quarterly, and annual base. And they have to comply with CDFA's policies on acknowledgments as well, if you put anything out in the media around this grant. So that is a very kind of broad overview of the program. If there are any pressing questions right now, you're welcome to put them in the chat, and Sarah can maybe take a moment to answer them. Otherwise, we're going to kind of get into actually filling out the proposal, and Meyer is going to give us some kind of tips on things that to highlight and may be important.
Okay, thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Okay, so yes, like Carrie mentioned, I will go through each of the section of the proposal. There are still quite a few slides left, but most of them I will brief through them, and if there's anyone that I did go by really fast, that you have more questions about, we can always go back to that as well. So for all of the sections that I am going to cover, please know that everything here is in the RFP. So if at any point you want to go back, if there was any information that you want to go back and read more into, they are all in the RFP. So the first one is the proposal requirement. Really quickly, when you submit your proposal, please submit it in the format of the Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel and not PDF. Your attachments can be in PDF, but the proposal itself must be in Word format and Microsoft for the budget template. No more than 15 pages. Any proposals that does exceed the page limit will not be considered. And the email and you must submit your proposal by email only. That will be to the California Farm to Fork at cdfa.ca.gov. If you subscribe to our newsletter, or if you have been in contact with CDFA at any point, this is the same email. We will also have it at the end again if you want to take note of that. And the proposal deadline is October 11th at 6 p.m. And this will be on the RFP. So if you need to do a quick guideline on how to submit your proposal, it's here. We are not taking mailed or fax copy of the proposal, only through email. Next. Award notification will be sent out no later than November 20th. If at any point after you submit your proposal to the timeline of the award notification, if you have any question, or if you did want to just follow up for any sort of confirmation, you are more than
Sorry, I think we lost Maya for a second there.
I can take over if you want. Maybe she'll come back to us.
All right, go for it.
Might just be a little technical thing. So yeah, just for the award notification, this is just letting you know that there kind of be again separated out a bit with the state and the state and federal. And if the federal proposal is not funded, our office may fund a portion of the selected proposals in whole or in part, and just using the state funds that we do have. So this is a little bit of touch and go, kind of navigating the state general funds, and then also whether we get these federal matching funds. Just if there is any issues, you do have the right to appeal within 10 days of the application, of receiving a response from us. If you can have any issues, you can do this in writing. And this is again in the RFP if you need to do this. We'll conduct an initial administrative review just to see if you kind of meet these criteria, like eligibility to distribute SNAP, those types of things. And then actually get into the scoring of the technical proposals. And yeah, we, kind of have these rights to disqualify any proposals depending on conditions, or if there's unanswered questions, or any misrepresentation in the proposals. So a bit of the administrative review is, again, just the eligibility is kind of, are you authorized to accept SNAP benefits? Certified farmers markets, are you certified? These things are all really important. And again, if you do check the retail store as a small business, then you should provide some statements that define you as a small business. For the evaluation criteria, hi, Meyer, are you back? Do you want to take over?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
Technology. Okay, where you're at the evaluation criteria.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think some of this is just the kind of the admin stuff that's also repeated, but just that these are some of the things that they'd have to be able to check off to be, eligible.
Yes. Yes. So this is the first, the initial review that we will do when we receive your proposal. I think maybe, making sure that you have the right documentations, making sure that you have the documentations that are required, whether that is for the small business, making sure that you're authorized for SNAP transactions, taking a look at your incentive to total budget requested ratio. And if you didn't meet the 50%, did you have the justification for it? Looking at all of the questions that you have, everything is filled in. If it was, so your proposal was submitted on time and all of that. So that is the initial review that your proposal will go through. And then the next piece, so we would get most of the information for the administrative review from the beginning of your proposal. I do want to point out a couple of things. One, and like Carrie already mentioned it from earlier, the small business, there is a definition that we abide by for the small business. So make sure that you check that just to make sure that you have again, the required documentation and that you also fall within the small business that we define it as. And then for the organization's legal name, for folks who are applying for the first time, I think I've had a couple of application or proposal before where this can get confusing, but the organization's legal name is the fiscal sponsor of your organization. So even if you have, let's say, a different department or your organization is implementing the program itself, the check that CDFA will mail to, so the name that we will write, that we'll put in the check for your organization should be the fiscal sponsor. So that is the person, that's the name that the check will be mailed to. So make sure that when you put down your organization's legal name, that is the fiscal sponsor. And if you do want to add the organization that is implementing the program under it, you can also do that as well. So just make note of that. And then the next part, the unique entity ID. If you have applied for CDFA's grant before, or actually, yeah, just CNIP and any other federal grant, you should have obtained a UEI number already, and you should also be registered in the System of Award Management, which is sam.gov. By the time of submitting your proposal, if you do not have a UEI number yet, that's okay. You can put N/A, but do note that the timeline from submitting the proposal to the award notification and the grant, executing the grant agreement, it can be a little tricky if there was any, I don't know, if there's anything that happens to the system or to maybe something is going on with the organization and you're not able to get the UEI number on time. Even if we are to award you the grant, the funding, we will not be able to process any financial document if your organization does not have a UEI number and your account in sam.gov is not active. So just make sure that you have those two items. That's on your priority list after submitting your proposal. Okay. Then I think I saw questions sort of similar pertaining to this, but this is a section where you will fill out your sites. If there's any sites that is not identified yet, or if you have already talked to some partners and you know that you have like 5 store or 5 farmers market that will be in your proposal, but you're still not sure, you can also just put 5 sites TBD. That is okay as well. Just give us as much information that you know at the time, but it's okay to also not be able to identify. And if you need to add an attachment, this can also be come in as an Excel spreadsheet as well. Responsible contact. I know a couple of organizations have like a few staff working on the proposal. So maybe you might have a program manager, program director, and executive director working on the proposal. And then maybe the program manager is the person who is emailing us the proposal. Whoever is the one that will have to sign off on the grant proposal. So if it's the executive director, even though the program manager is the one emailing us, the responsible party contact must be the person who's going to sign it. So the executive director, if that is the person who will sign the grant agreement. Okay, technical review. So these are the criteria that we will score your proposal off of. And the RFP, the technical review and the criteria is at the end of the RFP. So again, if you want to go back and take a look at this, take a look at the scores that each of the criteria are out of, that is at the end. And as I go through each of the proposal section, do note that some of the criteria has specific questions for each of the section, but some of them don't. So the one that doesn't have like a specific question for it, we're gonna review it based off of your overall proposal. And so just keep that in mind. So for goals, objectives, criteria, the score is going to be out of 15, marketing outreach out of 15, operations 15, communities you are reaching out of 10, cost share, as Carrie have mentioned, it is highly encouraged, but it is not required. So it's a little bit on the lower at 5. Same with previous experience at 5, community partnership 5, budget. So your overall budget, and then also really taking a look at that incentives to total requested ratio, that is going to be a score out of 15, and composing a unified state application and federal competitiveness. So for folks who are applying for the first time, or even if you're returning and maybe you might have to like revamp anything, but specifically for folks who are applying for the first time, I don't want to discourage anyone with the score for specifically like previous experience or cost share. Like if you cannot find any cost share, please know that they are all on the smaller end of the score. And we really do take a look at everyone's proposal and put it together like a packet. So even if you feel like you might score a little bit lower on the previous experience or on the cost share, just know that there are so many other aspects that we also take a look at. So don't feel discouraged from that. And we put everyone's proposal together as a packet at the end. So that's also where the last criteria is at. Okay. Cool. So yeah, I'm going to go through the next couple of sections very briefly. Again, this is just out of the RFP. So if there is any section that you have a question about, for example, like the goals that you have question about, let us know, and then we can come back to some of these slides. So we'll skip to operations. And just to reiterate, for the incentives, when you are tracking, no SNAP EBT number in whole or in part can be collected. So yeah, if you do need any sort of suggestions, there are different options. And then for the incentive program design, again, just a reminder of the ratio. The minimum is a 1-to-1 ratio. Benefits to be spent, and then a maximum of 1-to-4. So this is as flexible as we can be with CDFA. We also understand that different communities, there's different needs, and there's also different abilities to be able to distribute incentives. And so you really design what would work for the community that you are working with. Like if you're in a rural area and there's just less people, but then maybe you're able to give out more incentives, these are up for you to design that program. So this really you can show us in the proposal, like just what are the needs within the community that you're working with, and you can design that program of the incentive distribution. Technology use, tracking, accountability. Again, there's a lot of different ways where CDFA were flexible. It's up to you to see what would work with the shoppers that you are working with. And tracking. Okay, and then let's go into communities reach. I think there's a couple of these sections that has links. So keep that in mind when you fill this out, that if there's any sort of like sources that you would need, we do have these links in the RFP as well. So you can always utilize that too. Like at the Department of Public Health, and also the USDA Food Access Research Atlas.
I'm just going to jump into and say that if you're applying on behalf of, hundreds of farmers markets in different locations, you don't necessarily have to list all of these rates, and could maybe take an average or some examples of the different areas that you're in terms of food access and diet related disease. If you are just in one location, it would be nice to kind of have these data so that, again, we can collectively put this in for the GusNIP.
Thank you. Seems like we have the next slide. There are, I guess didn't have it in the other slides, but yeah, just also something new, kind of small, but we added some character limits. So just keep that in mind as like a guidance for you when you fill out your proposal. Okay, we have the cost share. Okay, and then we can go to the proposed budget narrative. And yeah, we can pause it here for a little bit. So the proposed budget narrative, there's the budget narrative piece in the Word document. Something new that we add this year to your proposal is also a budget calculator spreadsheet. So this is available on our website. So maybe, Carrie, we can walk through that. I don't know if you're actually, yeah, if you're not able to click on the link, that's okay. That's okay. But it's on our website. So if you go to CNIP website, right under all of the proposal and the template, there's also the budget template as well. And it just looks like what we have here on the slide. And there are 3 tabs. There is an example tab. There's the calculator tab, which is the one that you will be using. And then there's the overview, which just kind of transfer all of the information that you put into the calculator for an easier overall look on the overview. The goal for this spreadsheet is to streamline the process of if there is any change that we request for you to make from the time of the award notification to the grant agreement. So let's say we award you, but we're only able to award you like less than $50,000 from your original request. If we are to make any sort of adjustment, the goal is to just utilize this spreadsheet to make all of that adjustment so that we can make the process a lot faster than what we've done in the past, so that the change and the adjustment does not take as long and we are able to have more time to execute the grant agreement. And this is also more of a recommendation. We're not tied to it, but a recommendation for you to start with the spreadsheet first and to fill in all of your number and all your calculations. Most of the cells are pretty open, so you can put in your own formulas in there. Some of them do have like pre-existing formulas, but that is more to calculate like the overall from each line items to the total budget to the incentive. But the individuals themselves are pretty open, pretty free, just because I understand that, different organization has like different way of calculating. It could be like someone's salary or the wages, and someone might have a salary that increase throughout the year. So all of that is up to you to insert those formulas. And so we can just have like a more streamlined process. And then once you have that in the calculator, hopefully it will be easier to transfer the numbers, just the number, into the budget narrative, as we still need the budget narrative and also the details that you still have to write and the description that you still have to add into the budget narrative. But the spreadsheet is to streamline the numbers. Okay. And yeah, indirect costs are capped at 15% for operating expenses. Let's see. And then one note for the period, again, reiterating, there's the state only portion, and then there's also the federal and state portion. So for the state only funds, when you were filling out your period and your budget narrative and also in the spreadsheet. Do know that we just had the entirety of the state-only portion as one period, and that is going to start from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025. The remaining periods, so if you are requesting for your project to go until the end of December 31st, 2027, then you will have 3 additional periods. So you'll have 4 periods in total. And the rest of your periods, so period 2 to 4, should follow the state fiscal year, which starts July 1st and ends in June 30th of the following year. So that means that your period 2, it would start January 1st, 2026 and ends in June 30th, 2026. And then period 3 will be July 1st, ends in 2026, ends in June 30th, 2027. Yep. So again, Lee Organization, that's the name of the legal organization. And then the project director and the contact information. Actually, I think that needed to be changed. This information for, if Carrie, if you're able to go back to the proposed, Scratch, we might have to make an announcement on this, but this should be the same information as the responsible party contact that we talked about earlier. Yeah, so just have the same contact information. Okay, something new that we also add this year to our budget narrative is that we just have all of the periods there, so you can just fill out 1 page of budget narrative instead of making 3 copies of it. Okay, and then let's keep going. And yeah, if anybody have any questions for any of these line items, put it in the chat, sorry. But just make notes of the note that is under each line items. And let's go to incentive. Yeah, so just reiterating the 50%. If you are not meeting the 50%, please provide justification. And I think we can skip to subaward. One thing I do want to mention for the subaward is, let's say if you contract somebody to distribute incentives, so maybe a nonprofit contract a farmers market associate to distribute incentives at their farmers market, the incentive budget that the contract has should not be within the subaward line item, if that makes sense. So if they are distributing the incentives, the incentive budget should all be together in the incentive line items and not under the subaward. So your subaward cost should just be for any sort of like personnel or materials, but the incentives must be in the overall line item of the incentives. Okay. And the indirect costs cap at 15%, only for operating expenses, and that does not include incentives. Okay, cool. And we'll go into invoicing, progress report, invoicing. So this is a reimbursement grant program. Invoices are submitted quarterly. You can also do monthly too if there is any sort of like cash flow, you need more cash flow. And yeah, you can expect to be reimbursed within 45 days after invoices are approved. Progress report. So some of the other requirements for reporting is you'll have a progress report. You'll also have metrics and the evaluation that's quarterly as well. The progress report is annually, the metrics is quarterly, and then also a final report at the end of your agreement. These are all requirement and must be submitted. And you will receive more information once you are onboarded. So we'll go in depth during the onboarding process, onboarding of each organization. Okay, I think that looks good. And then we have some links to the additional grant. Definitely take a look at those. Again, they are also linked in the RFP. And we're at the FAQs. So
I'll just jump in here. If just on these additional grants, this first page, the specialty crop block grant is certainly open and could complement the CNIP program. So I definitely encourage you to check it out. It's an annual grant, and the Community Food Hub grant program, the Farm to School Incubator grant program, and then also it's also good to just kind of keep up and get on the newsletters of some of these. The Underserved and Small Producers program was funded last year, and I think some of these are pending and not sure if they'll be funded again, but some of them are, and so it's good to keep up with them. This Local Foods for Schools and Schools is also kind of launching soon. So I encourage you to look at kind of these collaborative organizations that are working towards that proposal. Whoops. And yeah, these were Meyer, you want to go over these? I think you were the one who wrote them. It's great.
Go over the FAQs. So yeah, just another reminder, CDFA is not able to assist with the proposal, the writing of anyone's proposal. However, if you do have any questions about the RFP, contact us, email us, and what we would do is that any general questions that everyone has been asking, we will regularly publish that on the CNIP website. So far, these are the 2 questions that we've gotten from prospect applicants, and that is on our website. It is published. So if there's any questions, and even for today, I know that we got a lot of questions from in the chat. And so these, we will also publish the Q&As to our website so that everyone can access that. But I believe that's it. Is there anything else?
Thank you so much for going over all the details. I know it can be overwhelming for those on the call. So yeah, I think we can open it up to questions.
Yes.
And Sarah, and Meyer, who is an expert in and out, can address these.
Okay, I see. I'll go ahead and start answering some questions. I see Minnie's hand raised. Minnie, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Sure, thank you. My question is a little bit logistical. So you mentioned that there's the initial CNIP money, which could be available for those who have a gap before the GusNIP money is available. Am I correct in understanding that?
That's correct, yes.
All right. So even if, let's say, there were a gap in summer of 2025, that money that was put up for match would still be available at that time, or would it have to be separated out before it was put up for match?
When you say put up for match, you're talking about for the GusNIP program?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what, I'm going to take a step back at Minnie. I know you're a little familiar with this, but for those of you who aren't, so generally, CNIP operates on the GusNIP calendar because we receive both state funding for CNIP as well, and then we apply for federal competitive funding from the GusNIP program. This year, because of the budget crisis in California, we were unable to apply for GusNIP. As many of you know, and those of you that know and did all the advocacy at the back. But because of that, right, there is this gap. So organizations like Minnie's at the Ecology Center, who have been operating this program for a while, if we waited for the GusNIP calendar, there would be a gap in funding. So shoppers who have been coming to rely on this program wouldn't have it. So that's why we had this sort of odd sort of programmatic setup with the state funding and this federal funding. But I think the takeaway for organizations is apply for the funding that you need. On the back end, we're going to be doing some things differently because of that sort of gap between the federal funding happening. But so if your organization needs funding starting, Minnie, you give the example of this coming summer of 2025, when you apply for your grant, just apply, okay, 2025 through, I need it through, whatever your end time is in those different project periods. The first project period will look as that state only funded, and the next few project periods will look as that state and federal project. And that's all you all need to do on your end. On our end, just so you know, the back end, we'd actually split that grant into 2 technical different grants. So we get one set of paperwork for that state only funding. And that's because we need to keep that money distinct from money we might put forward as match for our federal funding. But from your point of view as a grantee, all you need to know is you'll sign two different sets of paperwork for the same project, but one that will end December 31st, 2025, and then the next step would go forward with hopefully that federal funding. So hopefully that answered your question. We're sorry about the extra confusion. It's because of this weird thing where we weren't able to apply for the federal funding this year. But there's a question I haven't responded to in the chat as well on that, and just everything can go in the same application, and just follow the way that the time periods work. And we just know that that first period is a state only funded, and the next one will hopefully be state and federal. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right, Robert, I see your hand up as well.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Very helpful. My question is for from the context of a farm stand. How do applicants typically go about estimating the total amount of incentives that they would be able to deliver? Is that basically just figuring out how much product they think that they could sell that would be dedicated to this, and then working their way back from a dollar amount over the course of the grant period? Is that correct?
Yeah. So generally, I would take a look at sort of see what your current SNAP sales are, right? Because these incentives are only for your SNAP or your CalFresh customers, and say, okay, I'm doing about, $100 a week of SNAP sales. And then you have to decide, okay, like I want to offer a one-to-one incentive. So if I'm doing about $100 a week of SNAP sales, I would need $100 a week of incentives to sort of, to match that. Oh, okay, that would be like $200. Am I going to have that much? Would I have that many more customers, or really, like, I think I'm still only going to sell about $100 worth of produce, but now 50 of that is going to be SNAP and 50 of that is going to be incentives. So it's a little bit of a game of looking at what you're currently doing and how many more customers you think you're going to get because of this, right? Because oftentimes, right, once like the word gets out, it's like, wait a minute, I get, half off my produce if I go to Robert's farm stand, you're going to see more shoppers coming. So that's where you're sort of like, okay, maybe if I'm currently selling $100, I might actually double that to $200. And I just know that half of that is coming from the CNIP incentive. So it's a little bit of a guessing game. You can always put in a little bit of a buffer. One of the things we usually are not able to do, right, is if all of a sudden you're running through incentives faster, we don't usually have more money to go through. Every now and then, if there's a grantee that drops out, we can redistribute funding. But generally, we can't increase budgets after they've happened. So do try to, we can move things around. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I put in some money for like signage, but it turns out I'm getting way more customers than I initially thought, I don't need to put out any more signage. I'd rather switch that money to incentives. We can be flexible about that. But generally, to answer your original question, I would look at your current SNAP sales and then try to do your best guess as to how much more you think you would be able to do. And with a farm stand, right, you're also going to be limited by what your production is. So, like, would you be able to add that much more to your farm stand and sort of go from there? Does that answer your question?
Thank you. That does. And just kind of like one follow-up question to that too. You mentioned that there's some differences between CalFresh fruits and vegetable produce versus California produced food, so to speak. So would would uh, would have to decide I'm just going to do fruit and vegetables or just food products, or can it be a combination of both?
Yeah, so the incentive. So we have to we're really trying to incentivize the sale of of CalFresh of fresh California grown fresh fruits and vegetables. The way that this sort of it can get a little bit sort of tricky is you can earn those incentives by these are the three different models that Carrie walked through. With a farm stand, so I'm gonna make up some examples here. This might not work, but like let's say this is your farm stand, you only grow fruits and vegetables and only sell fruits and vegetables. You would do a fruit and vegetable for fruit and vegetable model where the shopper, it might be like a 50% discount, or I go and I spend $10 on fruits and vegetables today, I get $10 of coupons that I can spend tomorrow. Or you might be a farm stand that also sells some value added product that wouldn't be eligible as that like California grown fresh produce, but maybe, it's a dried fruit, maybe it's some jam. It would be something that would still be eligible to spend my CalFresh, my SNAP dollars on. You could set it up where I earn incentive buying just that fresh fruit and vegetable, but I can spend the incentive also on, say, that jam. Or I earn the incentive by spending on anything, including the jam, and then I can only spend the incentive on the fruits and vegetables. Does that help?
So a little creativity then
Yeah.
with that. Okay, because we do value added products like and
Yeah.
baked goods too.
So if it helps, so I'm going to just outline the way that most of our farmers markets do it, which is where, as a CalFresh shopper at a farmer's market, I would go and say, hey, I want to spend $10 off of my EBT card of my CalFresh benefits, and I would get a token that I can spend on any CalFresh eligible items. So that would include those value added products. It wouldn't include things that aren't eligible for CalFresh, like a sort of a hot prepared meal, but it would include, milk, dairy, eggs, or that value added product. And then when I get those $10 of my EBT tokens, I would also get my $10 of, and most of the farmers markets call it a market match benefit. That would be my incentive, and that can only be spent on fresh produce, right? So that extra token I could not spend on a value added product. But I earned it by spending on any sort of EBT eligible item.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Other questions? Audrey.
Hi, I was just wanting to find out, thanks for the presentation, by the way. It's really helpful to kind of walk through it first with other people. I had heard something about not being able to use the term market match potentially. Is that correct? And can you tell us a little bit more about why and what to expect?
So market match is the I don't know, trademarking it. It's the name of the Ecology Centers program that actually has been in existence from before CNIP. So market match is used by the Ecology Center and all of their subgrantees, but they do have a lot of branding guidelines around it and a lot of restrictions. So if you want to apply as part of that, what the Ecology Center does is they apply to us as a grantee. And sorry, I'm going to just throw out there, that's Minnie, who asked a question earlier. So reach out to her with sort of questions on that. Sorry, Minnie, to put you on the spot there. But the Ecology Center once a year usually opens up their market match program for applications. And it's a similar sort of thing as like a farmer's market can be like, hey, I would love to be part of the market match program. And they apply through the Ecology Center. What's really nice there is the Ecology Center has been doing this for years, has a lot of guidelines and materials, does a lot of support for the markets, and they're the ones that also take care of dealing with us. So they have to, work on all of the invoices and all of our program requirements. So many markets decide that that's an easier way to go. We, sort of working with them, they get all of the support from the Market Match Coalition, all of those materials and everything that the Ecology Center has developed, but that is their program. It has traditionally been the biggest CNIP grantee as well, but it is their specific program. So that's why that name is limited to.
That makes sense. I'm involved on behalf of the Shasta Growers Association. We operate the certified farmers markets in Northern California, and we did previously have market match through the Ecology Center. I didn't even see Minnie's name on here. And so I'm in contact with Jenny Dye, who's been helping us kind of on the back end prepare this, but I just wasn't clear about how that works. But now that helps clarify.
Yeah, I looked at a lot of sort of more. So Jenny applies to us. She with the Chico Center for Healthy Communities. And I do want to mention this too because there's a question in the chat. We also separately from this RFP will be releasing one for WIC and senior farmers market nutrition program benefits. And so you do see oftentimes organizations like Center for Healthy Communities or the Ecology Center apply on behalf of a number of markets. And sometimes that will really sort of help streamline sort of the paperwork and the burden on the markets. To have that sort of intermediary. It is not necessary. Individual markets or individual market associations can also apply directly, but it's something for each market to think about what makes the most sense for them.
Thank you.
Just have a few more minutes. I'm not sure if there's any other questions in the chat that you want to take.
I think so. I have a few that I haven't been able to answer yet since I've started talking. Let me just, I do want to highlight, let me see. Actually, Miles, I see your hand up.
Hi, yeah, I was wondering if I our farmers market is currently an unfunded market match site, if you think it makes sense to apply for this grant to try and get more market match funding. Talking to people at the Ecology Center, they said that there's a possibility with them getting more funding that our farmers market could move into a funded site, but all of it was kind of unclear and up in the air.
So you're wondering, would it make sense for you to apply to us directly or through the Ecology Center?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so that, and I see that Lucy has also just put in something in the chat about some of the Ecology Center works. I don't know, I'm hoping actually maybe somebody from the Ecology Center can chime in on when their next open application would be. Again, I think it depends a lot on sort of the capacity of the market. The Ecology Center just does come with more supports and work and sort of like ways to sort of help market start. So sometimes that's really valuable, but it is, again, it's up to your organization. You could also apply to us directly as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And it looks like they just chimed in. There's going to be an RFA for the Ecology Center in the spring to take on new markets. Sorry to put you all on the spot, Ecology Center. Thank you.
I was trying to Google it too, but that's great that they're here. Sounds good. I think we can certainly address any of the others I know that have been written up and put the answers to these questions that folks have had in the FAQs and kind of, collate them together, especially things around the budget and those project periods, so that that's clear. But I think we're close to the end of an hour, and unless there's anything pressing, I really want to thank all of those who jumped on for the call, for returning grantees who are eager to put in another application, and for folks who are just learning about the program. We're really happy to have you, and please reach out with any further questions. And we hope to see your proposals on October 11th.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and thanks to the team, Carrie and Meyer, for putting this together. Really appreciate it, and yeah, excited to hopefully, read some applications next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, stop recording.
Sounds good.